we said we should start charging because now it's free. Everybody's came to see us this afternoon. Well, you'll get used to my bad jokes. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. I know I probably answered most everybody who sent an email here. I think I got you all, except I got a couple in the last hour or so that I didn't answer. So thank you for joining us. This is a workshop, so we're a little casual in our dress and how we run the format. So we'll get right into it. This is a City of Hardeeville City Council workshop, 205 Main Street, Hardeeville, South Carolina, Tuesday, September 5th at 3 p.m. I'll remind council this is a workshop and the rules of order are relaxed. Just chime in, but make sure the previous speaker has completed their thoughts. This is for those of you who are here for the first time, workshops are a way for the council to hear about a project without having the pressure of making a decision. So whatever is presented here today, there are no decisions. This is conversation, this is learning, getting information so that when it does come onto the agenda, which will be, Mike, we're looking at the 21st.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when it comes on, we will have heard all the information. We will have heard from the public. We will have time to digest it and ask further questions of whoever before we're put the pressure of actually saying yes or no. We usually don't have this type of turnout for a workshop. I will open to the public when the council's done hearing from the applicant and asking their questions. What I would ask, if you do want to speak to the council, don't be repetitive, because obviously if you all came up and said the same thing, we'll be here till Thursday. So I'm sure we all want to go home for dinner at some point. So if somebody said something that you want to say, just say, I agree. That's what I was going to say. So we can move this along. I would ask that you would do that. Or if you have a representative who want to speak for a whole group, that would be fine as well. So we'll get to the public after we have the presentation. So I'm going to now turn it over to our city manager, Mike.
Yes, sir. All right. Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon.
Man, what a turnout. Wonderful. Your local government, democracy at work. So that's always good. So just briefly, and just for your advocation, just kind of explain maybe a little bit more on the process. So up until about a year ago, there's a prescribed process. So in this case, the developer comes to the city and he works with staff to develop what's called the master plan, plan development district, which is kind of the zoning for the property, and a development agreement. And then there's some other things. So that takes anywhere from 3 months to 6, 7, 8, 9 months. So when they've substantially completed those applications, then it goes to our planning commission. Then the planning commission has a public hearing and makes recommendations on developments to the city council. About a year ago, we changed our process, and before it went to the city council, we've had a workshop where the council could see this development plan, hear, all the merits of the plan, and, ask for questions, answer, bring up concerns that they have. So if there's anything that need to be, course corrections, things to be addressed in the plan, it can be done before first reading of the council. Then there's 2 readings of the council. Those are public meetings. We have public hearings to hear council comments before adoption of the proposed plan. So we're basically at the point now where this development, which is called Pod I in West Argent, went to the planning commission and they recommended approval to the city council. So this is where we're at. Ms. Katie is going to do a brief presentation on the agreements and the actions that are going to be before the city council.
Afternoon. Right. This is for an initial master plan within the existing West Argent Plan Development District. The site under review today is 389 acres. and it's located off of Lakeside Boulevard, adjacent to the Hardeeville School and the Horizons Residential Development, which was previously reviewed and approved by City Council. Um, Again, it is located off of Lakeside Boulevard. The site is highlighted here in blue. Horizons is down here. And it is currently vacant and undeveloped. It is primarily wooded. There are a few existing dirt roads that are used for silviculture and utility easements. This is a map that kind of shows you the overall pod eye is here. You have Station 83, you have Horizons, existing Hilton Head Lakes development here, and the Hardeeville School. This is the proposed master plan exhibit, which shows the proposed layout and access points and uses on it. So this is proposed to be all single-family detached residential. And you do have community access shown off of Lakeside Boulevard, off of the future Road A, and then again down here at the southern portion of this property. The darker green is the wetland area, and then the lighter green is open space. There is an amenity site as well in this area right here. So they are proposing a maximum of 450 single-family detached dwellings, which are covered under the density for the existing West Argent Plan Development District. This is consistent with the land use element, which encourages mixed-use developments, as the Plan Development District itself is a mixed-use development. And then a traffic impact analysis was provided, and staff review committee will continue to review the traffic impacts as it goes through the site development permitting process. This is a copy of the proposed open space plan. Again, you'll see there is a connection as far as the pathway will be extended along Lakeside Boulevard and Road A. And then you have an internal sidewalk and pathway plan as well. There is a proposed open space total of 51%. 10% is required by the PDD, and they have proposed a minimum of 15% active open space. The pedestrian connectivity, we did speak with the applicant during the pre-application process, and they have agreed to provide a pathway to enable connectivity to the school for bikes and pedestrians. Again, they did go to Planning Commission, and now we're in the City Council review. Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed initial master plan for this development with the condition that the construction access other than Lakeside Boulevard be considered. And I will just go back to the master plan.
I was just informed that we have outside, the TV is going to be the same live, what's happening in here. We are at the capacity level for the room, so no one else will be allowed in. But if anybody who's standing wants to go out and watch on TV and sit down, do we have chairs back there, out there, Mike, for them? Okay, so if you want to go out, you'll see the same thing that's happening in here. You can watch it on TV, and then if you later, when we open to the public, if you want to come back in and speak, you can do that. Okay, so that gives you another option if you so choose, but no one else is allowed in. Okay, Katie, where'd you go?
Try to get an exhibit up for you.
I didn't mean you had to go out. You have to stay in.
Try to get you an exhibit. This is the West Argent initial master plan exhibit, a little bit bigger than you can see in the presentation. And we do have representatives from Lennar as well as Thomas and Hutton here to answer any questions. And if Mr. C, I'll hand it back to you.
Does Lennar or Thomas and Hutton have anything to say before we start asking questions? Nathan looks like a man who has something to say. Please introduce yourself, and everybody speak into the microphone so we can have a clear recording of what's going on today, and identify yourself for the public record.
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Long. I'm with Thomas and Hutton We are a consulting engineer for the applicant, who is Lennar. So thank you all for rescheduling this meeting multiple times. I know we had the storm come through and Labor Day weekend. So this is the most people I've ever seen at a commission or council workshop. So thank you for your interest. I know everyone's concerned and wants to understand what's happening in their community. As Mr. Simbor stated, this is a planned development district. There's probably a little over 4,100 units left to be built back in this general area and north of here. This is the first phase of that. So right now you've probably seen some clearing going on in the roads and doing some surveying. There's a road that's planned from the existing Lakeside Boulevard.
Nathan, you're tall, so you got to get that microphone up because they can't hear.
Sorry. Is that better?
Chief, is that okay? Can you hear him?
And let
He couldn't hear me.
So, all right. So
Just
this-
make,
Yes. Let me just turn this way.
or if it's easier, just pick up that other one so you can put it near your mouth.
This is fine.
Okay.
All right. So the existing Lakeside Boulevard is just to the right here. This is where the traffic circle stops, and Magnolia Walk is right up here. So what we've currently designed is a 4-lane road, very similar to what you've seen at Lakeside Boulevard. It's going to be a 4-lane divided median roadway with utilities as well as the 10-foot multi-use path extending westward, pretty much to the power easement. There's a few different power easements that bisect this property. And so from here it goes north and up to the next wetland crossing, which would probably be about here. And then it comes south here to Pod I. So Pod I is the first piece of new residential lots that's planned for the area. And we had that infrastructure that has been planned and is being put in place now. So as part of Pod I, the 4-lane road will also be extended down. You can see where it kind of comes out through the south, because ultimately there will be another 4-lane road back to Highway 278, and that's going to be triggered by traffic thresholds, and resident numbers within the community. As you bring on more units, obviously you have to have more ways to dissipate traffic. We do have other representatives here to discuss traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I will say that Highway 278 is a regional improvement project, right? Right now with this 450 units, the intersections do not fail out at Lakeside. But in the near future and beyond this, we do know that those intersections will start to fail. So we've been working with the city on the development agreement, because there is some funding that will be generated by these projects, and by each residential unit they have what are referred to as development impact fees. And so those fees go toward traffic, libraries, schools, parks. There's a number of things that they go toward, police and fire, but a good percentage of those also go toward road impact fees. So that's a whole nother conversation that I don't want to get too far into, but I do want to let you know that the plan is being put in place to help assist with those regional improvements that from a traffic perspective. And I guess we've got multiple accesses planned to the community. One's going to be here to the 4-lane road, and one is here. These two are, right across from each other. And then there's one more to the south here connecting to the future extension of Road A. And the amenity center is here. So most of these pods that we submit as an initial master plan, which is what this is, are independent communities that are part of a larger community, obviously. But each of them, what I'm trying to get at there is they all have their own amenity center and amenities. And that's the basic summary here. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions. And like I said, we have other representatives as well that can speak to the traffic, and I know that's part of the presentation as we go forward.
Nathan, could you, before you go, could you also point out, as everyone knows, we don't have individual mailboxes anymore, that they're group mailboxes. Where are they located in this master plan?
Okay, so the United States Postal Service kind of governs where kiosks go. So every time we submit a plan, not at this level, this is more concept plan. Like, so next would be design phases, which is specifically shows the roads, the amenities, the lots, the water and sewer to each lot, as well as mail kiosk locations. So we'll have to send that to the Postal Service. And in the past, what they have gravitated toward was like a central place. But as we've seen in like Latitude Margaritaville, there's a central place that doesn't have enough parking and it's not easy for the residents to use. So they're starting to go back to more segregated mail kiosks. So basically for smaller areas, like they still don't like every house to have a mailbox. But they want more like maybe you've got 15 on one little pod that's probably the size of this, a little bit bigger than this podium, but they're spread throughout the community. So I think that makes more sense just for ease of, convenience with others, and you're not all gathering at this central amenity. But we don't have the defined mail kiosk locations at this time. We do have some flexibility in our plan to adjust to those as the Postal Service recommends those.
That is accurate. We have been having meetings with both the Ridgeland and the Hardeeville postmasters, and they have requested to be more actively involved with staff review committee. The former postmasters were involved, but now they want to look at it on a more detailed level instead of at these higher levels, because it no longer is that philosophy that one central is needed. Now they want the smaller ones. So we will be working through that as we move forward with site development permitting.
Okay, so we've heard from Thomas and Hutton. Does Lennar have anything to present before we open up for questioning? We have Lennar representatives here.
Yes, John Hoppes.
Okay. All right. So at this time, I would like to open it up to the council for questioning. Who'd like to go? Steve, you want to go?
Yes, believe Ms. Guzman is well prepared with this. But I have a question. You mentioned that the intersection 278, Lakeside Boulevard, Latitude Boulevard, may have a failure because of the total amount of traffic. Am I correct?
In the future, if
Yes.
no additional improvements are made, yes.
How many homes are we talking before when you hit that rate? Does your traffic people have an idea on that?
It is basically like 1,000 more units, and this being 450 of those.
1,000 more units, and that's just your side, one side, two sides. That intersection's used by two different developments, two communities. Adding 450 on your side may be fine. My development's looking to add 2,400. This
Yeah.
failure rate may occur a lot faster than anybody has planned.
And Steve, there are growth rates that go into those for background traffic, but as part of this discussion, I think there's the gentleman that's doing the study for the city, the whole 278 corridor here. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I don't want to speak to all the specifics there, but I know that we have all realized that 278 needs to be 6 lanes, right? And it's only 6 lanes up to a point now, close to 170. The problem is that's $80 million. Okay, so what we're doing is trying to come up with funding mechanisms and ways to plan for the future. Part of that is these development impact fees. Again, I don't want to speak for others, but our understanding is the DOT doesn't have any immediate plans to make those improvements.
No, they
But
don't.
we have also been speaking with Beaufort County. They have the T-Splost that generates, I want to say it's 60 million a year if passed. And Jasper County is also looking at a potential local option sales tax, which can help support some future traffic improvements. And I also do have Doyle Kelly here. He's with Thomas and Hutton. He may be able to speak to that specific intersection in more detail if you'd like to understand why it's failing.
I don't need the more detail, but as I look around all these people all access that intersection, and
Yeah.
as do others.
Yeah.
This, when we talk that it will have a failure rate, but we don't know when, and we don't know how we're going to deal with it when we get there, those are answers we need. We really do. That's all I have.
Just want to, before we go any further, let's make it clear to everybody. These road improvements to 278, even if we did a sales tax referendum, which will probably come up next year, Jasper County collects about $6 million a year through 1% sales tax. If the 278 was the only thing that we were doing, would you say it was $100 million?
80.
80. So you're talking years of collection before that happened. But I can tell you right now that Argent Boulevard, which has a $80 million price tag, is ahead of it on the priority list, as well as 1746, 315. That whole area there are other priorities already set in place. It's a long time. And I always say that not to discourage anyone, but we can't, that is not the cure. We can't say, oh, don't worry, the road's going to be widened. It'll be widened. I will be dust before that gets widened. So I just want to put the reality of the situation out there, and not to discourage everybody, because you're right. We do have to plan for the future. But I want everybody to understand the future is distant when it comes to, unless we're able to find federal or state funding, in addition to what we can do locally. So I just wanted everybody to understand the reality of the situation. Val, you want to take next?
Yes. Actually, I'm going to jump off of the traffic analysis before I go back to what I'm really going to talk about. The traffic analysis, I went through it line by line, and it uses the Highway Capacity Manual 6th edition to do its traffic analysis. But when SCDOT did their thing to decide if Hilton Head Lakes gets a left turn green signal into the development, they said that we did not generate enough traffic to have a dedicated green signal into our development. So now, basically, we gun it through that intersection on a blinking yellow. So we all take our lives into our hands. When I have run the red light many times, I'm not going to stand here and say I don't break the laws. I break that particular law. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to be sitting at that intersection till the cows come home. So here's my question for you guys. I know y'all are planning on using the boulevard for construction traffic. How are you guys going to solve that issue when it is a yellow blinking signal and you have double stacked cement trucks, 18-wheelers, residents, fire apparatus trying to get into the development in that left turn lane that is pretty short? So my thing is, how are y'all going to fix that, A? And B, is there any plans to extend that lane to have a longer storage and taper so we don't block the westbound through lanes on 278?
So I'll kind of back up and answer your question in multiple parts. So the first, on the construction traffic, there is an access back by the school off of Red Dam Road that allows for the construction access. That's where all the clearing and logging vehicles are accessing right now. So there's a construction access there. So we are looking at that because the last thing we want to do is have construction access running on Lakeside Boulevard because the developer has to pay to fix that road, right? So
But that's not what you said at the planning committee, at the planning commission meeting.
no, at the planning commission meeting, they asked us to look for alternative routes, and we said that we would.
Okay.
So since that time, I've went and spoken and talked about it a little bit more, but there is an access easement that runs right through the school property. It's just west of the school.
Okay.
And for traffic, I'd like to ask Doyle Kelly to come address your stacking question because I do have obviously there's a traffic study for this pod. There's a traffic study for West Argent. There's a traffic study for the Morgan track. There's a traffic study for the car track. There's a traffic study for South Point, for Latitude Margaritaville. There's like 12 different studies out there. And that's one of the reasons the city has commissioned this 278 study so that we can bring in that information from each community and try to look at it all holistically. Because as I mentioned, we do have a growth factor on there, but each of these communities has different development schedules on when they anticipate to bring forth units. So there's a lot of factors that go into that.
So before you let the gentleman speak, you did say about since the meeting with the planning commission, you guys have come up maybe potential construction access easement, but isn't that through Jasper County property? Wouldn't,
The easement is existing.
yeah, so you wouldn't have to go and get
They've been
permission?
using that easement for a few years now,
Okay,
logging the property, and it's an access.
okay. So will it be a two-lane at Red Dam or John Smith?
Are you referring to Road A?
Yeah,
It will be a 4-lane divided boulevard, very similar to Lakeside Boulevard.
okay. All right, you can talk about the traffic before I get to the other one.
Okay, thank you. My name's Doyle Kelly, and I'm with Thomas and Hutton Engineering as well. The answer to your question is yes, that the left turns at 278 will need to be extended as a part of the West Argent project. Extended, when you look at the queues, extended to roughly 300 feet long with the appropriate tapers. At some point at build out, once all the homes are constructed, then you would need dual lefts at that location, at which point you would have to have a protected left turn lane.
Can you get closer to the mic? They're
Because
saying
they
in the
can't hear
back.
outside.
So yes, you'd have 300 feet of left turn storage there with a taper, and then at build out, you would need dual left turn lanes at that location.
Can you hear outside? Just give me a wave.
They can't.
You can't. You have to move that thing, and you have to get your mouth right up
Like I'm
to
going
it.
to kiss Nathan here.
You,
So we'll say it again. 300 feet of left turn storage for the left turn there, and then and again, SCDOT is saying right now it's not meeting the warrant for that protected left. You can continue to check that as the development occurs and keeps going. So there will probably be a point where that is going to be needed. Obviously, it's needed now based on what everybody is saying, but SCDOT has specific criteria that you have to follow. So until it meets that, they're not going to let us put the left turn arrow in.
Okay.
let me just jump in because I don't want to leave that point. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Mike, I thought I had asked for those lengthening those turning lanes long before Rhett even left, and I was told they were being engineered. We've been asking for those extending those turn lanes since before that light went in. What? So we're nowhere with that. Where are we exactly? The staff or somebody tell us where we are with those turning lanes? This is not a new subject, and it wasn't long before Lennar bought West Argent. This been a conversation or a question from the council. Mike, do you have any clarification?
Matt, I think Matt Davis, I think he was been charged with that. He can update where we're at.
Good afternoon. Just for those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt Davis, Deputy City Manager. Yes, sir, we have worked with Thomas and Hutton. They have looked at those turn lanes. I think really the reality is right now, we all know that's a pressure point. I think that's one of the things that we'll deal with at the site development stage where we say, hey, you're going to have to do this now, before it lengthen this turn lane before these houses get built. I think that's one of the things that we work through as we get further into the site development process. We do have some funds available. DA fees, plus obviously they're going to have to contribute whatever else they need to do to get that done. But that's really where we are with that right now. I mean, but it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. You have to have the development to generate the funds in order to make the improvements. And there's always a lag time, unfortunately, but we are working very hard to make that lag time as short as possible. But that's really where we are right now with that.
I'm a little confused by that answer, but I'm going to let it go for a second. We have development fees also coming out of Margaritaville. This isn't just a West Argent or a Hilton Head Lakes conversation. This conversation happened as Margaritaville was building up. We don't have funds from development fees from Margaritaville?
We do, sir. Yes.
I think we've let this drag on way too long. This has to be a proviso before it gets any yes votes. We need a timetable on that because we've been waiting far too long. Okay.
I imagine that's just the kind of thing you can take up at your public hearing when this comes in. You can have that.
No, I think it's something we need to take up because the council has been asking way before even Steve and Valerie came on board. We've been asking for this, right? So this needs to get taken care of.
Right. But just like with the flashing left, we are still, it's not our road. We are at the mercy of SCDOT. So we can only do the improvements that they authorize us to do.
So if we asked them?
I know we've asked about the turn signal and
I'm talking about extending the turning lanes.
I believe they tied it to the development of the second part of Magnolia Walk.
I think we needed an update on that before we come to first reading, right?
Sure.
Okay.
One comment about
That's not how we operate, sir.
I'll wait.
Mr. Mayor, I do believe there's a set of plans for that lengthening, but Lamar Mercer is kind of heading that up, and he's not here, so I can't speak to the status, but I know it has been discussed, as you said.
I know, because we've asked Lamar at a meeting before, and I think it's dragged on long enough. We need to have some status report on that because as soon as that light went in, we all knew those turning lanes were not sufficient. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I wanted to. I didn't want to leave that point.
That was a fair question. Actually, I have another question for you, sir. So, hypothetically speaking, right now, because I just got the information that they're looking at a construction road because a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it was supposed to be coming down Lakeside Boulevard, and that's why all these folks are here. So if this construction road is going to drop onto Red Dam, which bisects 278 and comes face to face with John Smith, how is that intersection going to deal with all that construction traffic?
So the study that we have is for the development itself and looks at, it's not looking at the construction traffic at that point. It's looking at what are the improvements that are needed as it relates to the development itself. So we haven't looked at the construction part of that yet. And plus, like you had said, we didn't realize that was going to happen at that location either.
Okay, so So this development is coming up for approval with a lot of things hanging off the truck that are hanging up in the air. Nobody seems to know. The details are kind of wishy-washy. So, I mean, what are we supposed to?
I don't think the details are wishy-washy. The details on the units that are proposed and the traffic impacts related to that those are in the study. So, and again, that's pretty typical that you're looking at what's the development impacts, not necessarily the construction impacts.
I mean, it's right up until the planning commission meeting. The plan was to divert all that construction traffic onto Lakeside Boulevard, which should have been extremely convenient for the developer as it is right now. And the fact that if it has to turn into Red Dam, there's a lot of improvements you guys are going to have to do there at that intersection because it is not built for that kind of traffic, right? So,
Yeah, I don't know how to even answer
You
that.
need to get real close on this answer to that microphone.
So at Planning Commission, we didn't say all the traffic was coming down Lakeside. That you must have misunderstood that. We've said we would go back and look at the Planning Commission had a recommendation to not bring construction traffic down Lakeside. We haven't gotten that far, Miss Valerie. We're at a conceptual master plan phase. I mean, we do have other accesses to the property to perform construction, and construction vehicles are all over all the roads throughout the county. Like, it's not something that is typically regulated and has a plan for the construction vehicles. Now, we do like to build those from, like, don't paint yourself in the corner kind of thing, right? So as opposed to coming down Lakeside, it would make more sense to build it from the other side. But yeah, those details have not been discussed.
okay. Because I mean, I have a transcript here of your conversation at the Planning Commission, and that's not what you said. So, but I'm going to move on to Mr. Huff because all my next questions, unless you all have any questions for these gentlemen up here.
No, you complete your questioning and we'll go down the road.
Okay. All right.
And let me just pass this out for future reference so that y'all can look at this. I printed a couple of copies, but what we did is we went through the different PDDs. As I mentioned, there's like 12 different studies out there. It's not 12, but each PDD has a study, and we listed the improvements that are required as each of those studies. So I think this will help you at least see that there is progress being made. There are things that are going to be done, but there's also the funding issues that you mentioned, Mr. Mayor. And we're trying to come up with creative ways to help address that, but it's a big number to make these improvements, like for 278 to be 6 lanes. So I'm not sure how that completely gets that loop closed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let them, because they're not going anywhere, so we'll let Valerie complete her questioning.
Okay. So my next series of questions actually is for Mr. Hoff. And before I go forth, I need to ask my fellow city council members for their indulgence in the next couple of lines of questioning. While I understand and appreciate that HOA matters are not under the purview of the city, this development is presenting unique situations that will be duplicated within other neighborhoods in the city. And furthermore, Mr. Hoff opened the door to these questions with a statement to the Planning Commission that is misleading. Mr. Hoff, I'm trying to establish your relationship with Hilton Head Lakes. Can you tell me what your relationship is with Hilton Head Lakes?
Good afternoon, Council. I'm John Hoff, Land Development Manager for Lennar. I also sit on the HOA board for Hilton Head Lakes Master and Hilton Head Lakes North Associations.
Okay, all right. So, at the Planning Commission meeting, you stated that Lena is the owner of the road. In that aspect, you have already established that the road is owned by the HHLMA, which is the Hilton Head Lakes Master Association, of which Lena is the declarant, correct?
Don't 100% recall. I know I said that it's either Lennar. I said Lennar, but there's also LK Development.
Okay,
So it could be Lennar or LK Development. We are, if you look up on GIS, I believe it shows us as the owners of that property still.
okay, yeah, of that particular property, but I'm talking about Hilton Head Lakes. I don't recall LK being the declarant of Hilton Head Lakes.
Excuse me, my conversation was about Lakeside Boulevard. It was,
Okay.
I wasn't talking about anything
Okay.
behind the gates, so I apologize if there was a
Okay.
misunderstanding there.
All right, so you stated, and I quote directly from the tape, any maintenance that needs to be done will be the responsibility of Lena and Coulter as we drive construction traffic through it. You said that, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and we will still be responsible
Okay,
for that.
and then you further continued by saying, typically we would come to city council before we do a punch walk with the city, before we turn it over, and it would be the cost of the developer, not the community, end quote.
That is 100% correct.
Okay, so, and I'm confused, okay? I live in that development. I kind of know the CCRs like the back of my hand. So can you clarify who you are turning this over to and when?
We discussed at that meeting that that road could possibly be turned over to the city of Hardeeville. And I think Mr. Simbor even said it could be up to 10 years until we're done with construction back there.
Okay,
That's what that conversation was.
okay,
reference to.
okay, so when I looked at the DA agreement that's dated 21 October 2008, it says that the city will not take over that road until the 3,000 certificate of occupancy is issued, and then 2 years beyond that. It does state that in the DA agreement of 21 October 2008. So here are the two concerns that I have. When you mentioned about, that you will be responsible for the cost of the maintenance, the concerns I have are that only the maintenance is mentioned and not ongoing repairs and maintenance. And number two, there is no establishment of a timeline when repairs and maintenance of the boulevard begins, and that it would be ongoing until LK is done with all the phases of construction. I would like the developer to establish a timeline.
We can, at this point, I drive in and out of Hilton Head Lakes every day. There's no repairs that need to be made. I know there's okay. We'll agree to disagree.
Please,
So,
everybody will have the respect of being quiet when they speak.
I can-
Please do the same for
Sorry,
Mr. Hoff.
Mr. Williams. The pothole that everybody referenced at the entrance of Hilton Head Lake is in the DOT right of way. The DOT has repaired it. It was not at the cost of the community. And if we can discuss that at the HOA meeting, it was not a cost to the community. It was done by DOT. With the sign development being done, there is plans to do some grading at the entrance to help with the flooding that happens. And then at that time, we'll also be addressing, hopefully with DOT to fix that pothole permanently.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm just going to put some numbers out there in perspective because this thing just blew my mind, okay? When I heard at the planning committee meeting that you guys were going to run construction traffic down the boulevard. So to put it in perspective, concrete trucks weigh approximately 80,000 pounds, fully loaded, times approximately 3 roads per home with a driveway, times that with the number of foundations being poured, in this case, the potential for 450 homes. Take into consideration other 18-wheelers coming in with construction materials with drywall, lumber, roofing, and other materials necessary for the construction of these homes. Let's not forget the many subcontractor vehicles coming in and out. So the wear and tear created by all those vehicles that I just mentioned outpaces the wear and tear that's created by the residents. So we're not trying to abdicate our responsibility to pay for normal wear and tear, but what we should not be responsible is for this level of wear and tear created by the construction vehicles. Do you agree with that assumption?
I hear your concerns, and that's also why we've addressed your the construction entrance at Red Dam Church. We heard that concern to try to take the construction traffic as much as possible off Lakeside Boulevard.
So you say as much as possible. Does that mean some will be coming off the boulevard? All will be coming down the construction road?
Ms. Guzman, I don't personally drive those trucks, so I can't personally say all of them will stay off the road. We can make the recommendation to our vendors to use construction entrances, put signs up. But I unfortunately do not drive the vehicles, and I cannot say 100% of them. Somebody might make a mistake one day. We're all human.
So let me get this clear. You're saying we can make the recommendation to the contractors
Not a-
that-
Sorry to cut you off. Not the recommendation, but we will have a construction entrance sign given to the
Okay.
to the construction.
So let me tell you how well that construction sign worked, because y'all had a construction sign near the bridge where we all go over, and that did not work because I saw cement trucks going over there and all kinds of vehicles going over there in spite of your sign. So that sign didn't hold water.
We also at that point were not the sole developer in there, so we will again do our best to point all traffic to the construction entrance.
Yeah, but you're part of the HOA. Isn't that your responsibility?
I'm unfortunately not in the neighborhood 100% of the time.
Okay, so then, okay,
So
that answers a lot. You also stated, and I quote, Lennar is the declarant of HHLMA, and the declarant funds any deficits that are created due to the construction, traffic, and stuff like that. End quote. Mr. Hoff, are you savvy with the CCRs of this development?
familiar with them, yes.
Familiar, but not 100% sure of. Okay. So maybe you misspoke the next point that I'm about to make. In the CCRs, and I quote 8.11, declarant's option to fund budget deficits pertains to funding the shortfall between the amount assessed and the amount of actual expenditures by the association during the fiscal year. Okay, that's what the CCR state. There is no language within that CCR that stipulates this deficit funding is specifically for construction, traffic, and stuff like that. So as a board member of HHL NOA, are you aware also that the declarant has failed to contribute anything towards the shortfall for the past year?
I actually reached out to Patrick, who's the managing partner for Lennar and LK Development there. And give me 1 second. I have the contributions amounts. In 2022, Lennar contributed $97,385 to the Master Association, and in the North Homeowners Association, Lennar contributed $111,036.
Okay. All right, I'm going to cross-check those numbers. I have.
Ms. Guzman, if let's restrict the conversation
I can do
to
that.
the master plan for now. Those conversations, while valid, are valid at a association meeting, not at this council meeting.
Okay.
So if you have other questions regarding this development, let's do them, and then we'll move down for the other council people to
Okay.
ask theirs.
All right. So I have one last point to make here, and that is a suggestion to City Council that there must be a secondary agreement addressing the ongoing maintenance and repair of the boulevard, and the city should integrate this into the DA for this development. This road will eventually be turned over to the city, and this is the only way I will vote for this development. And I have a short, very short couple lines paragraph here from a constituent, and I will just read that, and it actually sums up everything that all of these folks are feeling. And she says, We respectfully ask that you consider our position as homeowners placed in what appears to be a very precarious position where we and our fellow property owners can be on the hook for maintenance of this roadway if that responsibility is not placed fully on Lennar Homes as a developer and declarant. We have worked very hard and waited a very long time to have our little piece of paradise, and we like it here. We don't want to be placed in a position of being forced to leave this place by absorbent costs not related to our property and not incurred for our benefits. End of paragraph. Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it over to the next council person, but did I hear earlier that Lennar is going to be responsible for the maintenance of this road? Or did I?
Yeah, I think as Valerie mentioned, the development agreement does outline all that. It talks about the triggers of when the road would be taken over by the city. Obviously, for that to happen, the city has to come inspect the roads, repairs have to be made. And I can't speak to who's funding what, but I know it's not the city's responsibility until they accept the road.
All right, I'll come back to that. Mr. White.
The little quote that Valerie read just a few moments ago, to me, summarizes my view, and that is, you have a lot of folks here, just like me, that came down here to live, and all of a sudden, the home that they're living in, the situation is being altered, possibly more significantly than maybe we even understand. And it's very important, and I look forward to hearing what I'm going to hear from the folks here. But for you, this is a project. For these folks, this is where they live. And you've got to be really sensitive to that and make sure that things like turning lanes and all these things, which are sort of engineering kinds of things, are their daily life. And it's very important that we get this right and that you get it right. And the most important part of our meeting is going to start in a few minutes when we hear from the folks that are going to be impacted by a lot of what is being proposed. So that's my point of view on this. And I think that quote, Valerie, said it all.
Thank you.
John?
John?
I'm not going to belabor the point because Steve's had some good points. Val had a little summary statement a while ago, and Bo too, but there are some other issues that we haven't addressed, and to be honest with you, I don't know how they are going to be addressed, but everybody that's sitting in here, I know you've got other things, other thoughts in your minds. You're not just worried about 278 and traffic. You're worried about, if y'all read the newspapers not too long ago, Beaufort Jasper Water's struggling. I don't know if it's affected y'all, but brown water. So we've got 450, 500, I forgot how many homes Steve said a while ago. What was it, Steve?
450 on your side and a potential to another 2,400
What about,
on my side.
what about water and sewage? What about, and I know y'all probably don't, just like, I think it was Harry or something said a while ago, or Bo, y'all, we work with y'all a lot, and y'all do some quality work. That's not a question at all. And respectability, no problem at all. But the thing is, it's a project, and when y'all leave, so I'm a native here. So all y'all came since I was here. But, all of us pretty well are senior citizens, some more older than others, but anyway. Most of us are senior. Have y'all tried to get a doctor's appointment lately? How long does it take? Month, 2 months, 3 months? I think the mayor said he had, 3 or 4 months appointment?
I was dead.
450 more. How many people in that 450 houses? Just say there's 2 people living in each house, and you know it's going some going to be more than that's 900 more people on one side. How about the other side? So I feel y'all what y'all are saying. Y'all came down here and y'all did not count on this. And then on the other hand, we get to talking about 3 lanes for 278. Do you really think that 3 more lanes on 278 is going to solve the traffic problem? No. Where are those 3 lanes going to go to? And we all know it can't go, eventually it's gonna have to turn back into 2 lanes. So, I mean, it's just so many complexities, and I know y'all are concerned. And I know y'all are not just there for traffic. That's probably one of the main things, but there's a lot of issues, and believe you me, we are aware of that, and we are thinking about y'all. So don't think we up here and we're gonna listen to y'all, and then it's a moot point, because that is not the case.
That's the most I've ever heard you say.
Well,
That's a credit to the people out here because, you know, I joke, but Mr. Carroll is someone who's been on this council only I've been on this council longer
as
than
you.
you.
well,
As
you a
mayor,
little bit
I
longer.
was little.
Yeah,
I'm older, remember?
much.
Okay. But it just goes to show the level of concern that Mr. Carroll has, and that's why I brought that up. This is something that's very important to him, and thank you for those comments. I'm going to take a different tact before we get back to the traffic thing. Did I see, it kind of went by fast before I read it, are there sidewalks in this development?
Yeah.
Throughout,
Yes.
in front of every home?
I want to say it's one side of the street.
But it's, okay, there'll be one
Continuous, yeah.
sidewalk on every street.
Correct.
Okay. And so that's good. How wide is the street?
24 feet.
24 feet, okay. Now, when someone comes into this development, prior to 20 years from now when the other road gets built, how will they access all their homes? Show me the route that they have to take. So like, see the bottom left, like there's a roundabout there, those homes. Show me the traffic flow right now for the however many years into the future. These residents are going to come from Lakeside Boulevard, correct?
Yes. So they can either come in here,
Okay.
which I would anticipate most of the people in this portion of the community would do that. Then the people either here or here, you could come in here if you're coming to here, or you could come down the 4-lane, come down here, and then you could go left or right here.
Okay, so now go all the way to the top. So those people up top there, they'll have 2 access points. They can go into Lakeside Boulevard and go into where is that a 1?
Yeah, for them, there's wetlands all around this portion. This is kind of a dead end here, right? So the 4-lane, they would come down to here, turn left on the 4-lane, and then turn and then come down this road to get here.
And right now, we don't have access, or we don't know where the mailboxes are going to be. But there won't be a central place for 450 mailboxes?
We don't anticipate that, but again, that's kind of driven by the Postal Service, and we have to follow. what
Are
they
we going
recommend.
to recommend something different?
We have to follow what they'll approve. I mean, they
But-
used to approve the smaller
But
ones.
we're going to,
throughout,
are
then they
we
went
going to
central.
recommend that 4 places go, or we just say, tell us where you'd like to put them?
Oh, no, we will, I don't know if this is working, but we will make recommendations to them based on the guidance provided. Yes.
Okay, so
We'll
do we
come
have
up with a
any
plan.
idea where those recommendations will be in
No, I mean,
plan?
it would be spaced throughout. I mean, it's going to be, again, every 15 or so lots, you'd have another one, but they'll be along the roadways.
Okay, there's a reason for these questions, and I'm going to go to it. And this is very important. When we approved Sun City 4 years ago, the last group of homes before we went to East Argent, there were 520 homes that were approved. At the time, they were not going to put another entrance. And this council asked them to put one in, and they did. But in spite of that, and it's going to be a right in, right only, what happens, and I see happening here, the people who live right by number one there and the other entrance, every house in the community will go past those people who are near those entrance because there's no other way for them to go. And so the traffic that's going to be there, and what's different than the first time I moved to Sun City before I moved to the new area, when you don't have your own mailbox, everybody's on the road with their dog, their golf cart, or whatever they use to get to the mailbox, and it increases the amount of traffic on those roads. So by only having those two access points, and I understand wetlands, but I'll guarantee you the people who are near those entrances, the day after they move in, they're going to be complaining because everybody is going to be going past their house, either to go to the mailbox, go to the store, go to 278. I think, having lived it, that this is going to be a problem for the people who move in there. And it's not going to affect anybody here, but it's going to be, our responsibility is the people who buy these places just as much as it is to be the responsibility who live here, to make sure that we build a quality product here. And I can tell you, from living in Sun City, there are the amount of traffic now in where I live now versus where I lived before when I had my own mailbox is huge. And that's why the sidewalks are going to be good. And Sun City has 24 feet. I was out there with a ruler today. My neighbors think I'm nuts. It's not wide enough. It's going to be okay with one sidewalk. But what's going to happen is with all the people now going past, everybody who lives in these extreme areas have to go past those homes. And if we don't have multiple mailboxes, they're all going to be coming down from mailboxes. It's not enough. I don't know where you put extra entrances, and that's the residents. And here's what led my first concern, what led years ago to the entrance at Sun City. Our first responders they're going to have to get airlifted down to these extreme areas. And that's even more important to me than the inconvenience of the residents. It's too far. The first responders have a long way to go from where the fire station is to get all the way to these extreme areas because there's only one road and it all goes through those neighborhoods. So when this 450 is built out, the access is going to be really limited, and I'm concerned about that. I'd like to see you all put your heads together and come up with some ideas as far as access. I don't think it's adequate. Having lived through it myself. I know you don't have an answer, and I'm not asking you for an answer, but it's certainly going to come up at first reading, and the votes will depend on what you come up with. Okay. Now, just for clarification, we have in our packet here, because it keeps saying the city's going to take over the road. But it says here that excuse me, Mr. Zimbor, the city takes ownership after 3,000 certificates of occupation. I will be more than dust than in 3,000. It goes pretty fast, but 3,000 is a long time. Okay, we only have 450 built to date, and here's another 450. So that's not, and this will take a number of years. So it's going to be a long time before the city takes over this road and maintains it. So the association will have basically for a very long time responsibility for maintenance. So I'm going to go back to the question I asked before we went to Mr. White. Did I hear properly that Lennar is going to maintain this road during, and for how long? Because that's the central issue of the 50 emails that I've answered in the last 2 weeks. Who is going to maintain that road, regardless whether it's one cement truck and everybody else goes in there? Who's going to maintain the road? Is it going to come back to the homeowners association, or is it going to be Lennar?
Mr. Mayor, that is an expense that'll go on the developers and not the homeowners association.
Okay, so that's clear, and that's going to be in whatever documents that this council approves, that there will be no additional maintenance cost to the HOA.
We will work on getting that to you, yes, sir.
Okay, so that will be in the documents that we're going to vote on the 21st.
I will do my best to have them ready by then. I can't promise you, but yes, we will get something.
If
to you.
it's not
Yes.
there, I will
Yes, sir.
I will ask the council to table it until it's ready.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
We will
So
get working on that agreement.
That will be that's a contingent that we're all going to expect to have.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And here's, the next part is Road A, and this goes back to my concern about access, the current access plan. According to the DA, and this is in our packet, this is on our website, this is all public knowledge in the packet. The current DA external roads fund balance, and we referred to the development agreements that we have fund balance, is $743,000. The estimated cost to construct this new road is $15 million. Funding for Road A could include DA fees, funding from other government agencies, a MID or a TIF. The developer, at its exclusive option, could acquire right away and construct Road A utilizing development agreement fees with the consent of the city. So if I read this properly, the $15 million that it would require to do the additional road that would go to 278 is nowhere in sight. All right? We have not come up with any of these we haven't asked another government agency, and again, that's way down the priority list. We have not done a MID, which is a municipal improvement district, and we have not done a TIF, which is a tax increment financing district as well. So there is no funding in place for now or even the immediate future for Road A. And that's fine. The reason I bring up this point is it makes more important the access points, because it's going to be a long time before Road A becomes even on the table of conversation. And meantime, these people are going to have to get in and out of this new community. So I think we have to go forward knowing that that's in the future, and we have to plan for the future, to your point, Nathan, and we do. We have to plan for the future. But we also have to consider the next 15 years of these people living in their homes and getting in and out, and the first responders getting in and out of there. So it's just, I'm trying to emphasize the point why this is not an adequate plan for this development. Point well taken, right?
Yeah, so let me just to back up briefly. We have been working with city staff to revise the development agreement and the PDD. So the development agreement, like you said, the funding mechanisms are a TIF, a MID, or the impact fees that I mentioned from the units. Now, the MID, if you do that, or the TIF, it goes to taxpayers in the region that benefit from the road, right? So they do have one of those in place to help fund some of the other roads in the development. Now, Road A and 278, we've looked at the cost of both of those for widening a section of 278 in front of Lakeside. And we've got roughly, don't want to get this incorrect, 26 million is what those two improvements would cost. And the development impact fees will generate about 38 million, or it will be more because you have a 3% increase per year on those fees. But that's the conundrum and the problem, right? Because you have to have homes. Building permit is when those fees are paid.
And the 38 million comes when all 4,000 homes are built?
Yeah, that's just an estimate.
That's the
of
max.
build out. Right.
That's the max.
Yeah.
Not only will
So-
I be dust, you'll be dusting. You're a lot younger than me.
Right. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
that's
is
that's the
funding
problem.
wise.
I'm making light of it, and I don't
Right.
mean to. I'm not trying to be smart with you. I'm just trying. Again, I'm emphasizing a point. We can't count on something that we will never see. Not the future will, but we won't. The people who buy these homes won't, and that's the point. We have to also be cognizant of the short term and the people buying these homes and their safety and their convenience. And if all these cars are going, that's a safety issue. It's not just a a joke. It's a safety issue.
Yes, and I think we'll talk with Joey as well about just EMS and access. Most of the developments require 2 accesses when you have roughly 150 or more units. And this has 4 access points with 450 units.
They're all like,
And you're right, they're all
West.
down one road right now.
and 2 are in the same place, and the other ones are, a 25-year plan. So
But all I was going to say there is like that happens a lot. Like look at Hilton Head, right? You've got a whole island with one road. Or look at Margaritaville. There's lots of
you're talking about 2 really bad situations, and we
Okay,
want to be smarter
just-
than that. We can't
understand what
go
you're
and
saying,
say,
I'm just
okay, they
pointing
made
that
a
out.
mistake, so it's okay if we make a mistake. That's not the kind
That's
of
not what
logic.
I'm saying either.
No, I know you're not, but that's how they do have a problem. We all know Hilton Head has a problem. We know Margaritaville, everybody who moves in says we only have one way out of here. And the same with Hilton Head. So we're trying to be smarter here with the new developments and not make the same mistakes. Plan for it and not, react to it. And that's the whole point. Let's plan for this. This is a plan. So let's come up with the best plan we can for the people. And talk to Joey, because
I will.
he knows that everybody has to go through the same entrance to get to the back of that development, and it's a lot smaller than this. It's 200 acres, not 4.
And that's again why we backed up and why we're working with the city, because when we talked in our initial meetings with you were there and the city manager, the idea was to come up with a plan, right?
Right.
Like we have to come up with a plan, but we also have to have units to generate funds. So that's why we broke out Pod I. That was 450 units required as part of that traffic study, because until we have a full plan, we didn't want to submit more that was going to trigger an off-site traffic failure.
No, I understand, and I think for everybody has to understand that Thomas and Hutton is one of our valued partners, and they do a lot of work for us. We have a lot of respect for him, even though I'm grilling Nathan here. He's been there before. So, but we're able to do this because they do understand us, and we do have a good working relationship. So we're expecting them to come up with the best ideas that they can for these issues. I have a question about the construction access off Red Dam, and you said it goes behind the school,
Yes, sir. It goes to the west of the school property.
west of the school
It
property.
comes up.
So it goes,
This is the
east
eastern
of the
side
school,
of the school
right?
project.
my concern is this, and my question is this. A lot of construction traffic, are the school children safe?
I I would hope that we can keep the school children safe. To build something, you're gonna have to have construction traffic, whether it's on Lakeside or
Right,
whether it's
but,
on
but,
Red
you know, when it comes to the safety.
The
of
access
school
is
children,
way
hopes
west of the
can't be
school.
a part of the conversation. It has to be more definitive than that. I'd like to see where this road goes. I want to go see it, and how the kids are protected. Now, there might be a fence, there might be something, but we have to make sure. This cannot be a hope. We have to make sure that that construction traffic that's going to pass that school is secure, and, you know, we don't have an accident with a child, okay?
I agree.
Okay. Now, the other question that I wrote the question because it came up in the conversation. Having lived in 2 construction zones of Sun City in the past 8 years, there are concerted efforts with signing and security limiting construction traffic to certain routes. So I would like to see, and I know and I appreciate, Mr. Hoff, that you'll do this, but we need to have some sort of signing plan that restricts construction traffic off Lakeside Boulevard once the construction road on Red Dam is in. Okay? So I'd like to see that plan. What are we going to do? And just like where I live, you can put, you put a neon sign and people go like, they'll come. I understand. But if we put the neon sign, we will restrict at least some of it. We can't just say, we hope. Let's do something, everything we can to keep the construction traffic off Lakeside Boulevard. And it's to your benefit. If you're going to maintain the road and it's going to come out of your pocket, then it's to your benefit to keep those cement trucks off that road. Okay? And all these things, we have notes. At first reading, they're going to come back up to see what's been done. And you know that, Nathan. I don't have to tell you. I think I might have had one more. Oh. Again, I've lived in 2 construction zones. And what Pulte did in those construction zones, they had every Sunday morning when nobody's out, they have street sweepers come through. Do we have plans for that for this development? I see you smile, Matt.
Mayor, we have SWIP routines, and typically that involves sweeping of the streets of any dust and debris that's in the roads.
And will
That
that
happens
include
weekly.
Lakeside Boulevard while construction's going on?
Oh, Lakeside Boulevard, I believe, is under a quarterly maintenance right now to be swept once a quarter.
Okay, now hopefully that's enough because you're going to have all the traffic going in.
And it can be increased if needed.
Okay.
At this point in time, it's not needed.
Okay,
But
all right, so that's something you'll keep in mind, and Valerie, as part of the HOA, will make sure she increases it. Yeah, you have to deal with her. I don't envy you that task. Okay, I think that ends my questioning. Before I open it up to the public, do we have any other follow-up questions by council?
I just like to say what this council is concerned about. I know I'm speaking for myself maybe, is the public safety. This is what it's all about. You referenced single entrances. Well, you know what? Yes, mistakes have been made in the past, but we're here now to make sure those mistakes don't continue into the future. I look at all you folks out there, and I probably see you turning into Hilton Head Lakes as I'm turning into Margaritaville. We all hit that same intersection, and it's all about safety. I want to be here in 10 years. I hope I'm not dust, but we just want to see how.
I'm older than you.
Okay, but I mean, this is what it's all about, to make it a safer place for all of us. And now we've talked about the school at the Red Dam Road. Now we have the children involved also. This is not an easy process. This council is going to work as hard as possible to make it safe for everybody. That's it. The only other thing I asked Mr. Mayor is we have public input coming in. Would 3 minutes per resident be considered?
What we're gonna do, and this is fairly typical when you have a large crowd. First of all, I ask that let's not do the repetition. Everybody, we have a timer. You're limited to 3 minutes, and a grand total of 30 minutes will be devoted to public comment. And I'm going to read the rules for public comment. We have rules for public comment, and this is important. We are now entering the public comment portion of our meeting. We ask that you direct your comments at this time to the council as a whole. We welcome any comments on matters appearing on the agenda or those that are within our control. Some matters are better addressed to county council or your state representatives. That's not applicable in this case. Please avoid personal attacks on members of our community, city staff, or council members, being mindful that these proceedings are being broadcast and are available to be heard by children and others at home watching. So we have all taken a pledge of civility up here. I ask that you all do so because I know it's emotional and nobody gets more crazy than I do. So do as I say, not as I do. And so what best would work, if you have something to say, start forming a line in front of the podium. Make sure you state your name and address for the public record and talk directly in the microphone because we are recording and we want to be able to look back at the tape. So please, whoever wants to start us off.
My name is Pam Shergott. My address is 95 River Oak Way in Hardeeville. I am in Hilton Head Lakes in the Golf neighborhood. The Hilton Head Lakes Master Association owns Lakeside Boulevard, not Lennar. We've been paying taxes on this land. It is map number 042-00-06-058. To put into context my concerns, I need to give you a little background. In addition to the declarant, Lennar Carolinas, there are 7 other members of the Master Association: SLV4/SBI West Argent, the North Owners Association, Hallmark Golf Course, SFS Development, the City of Hardeeville, LK Development Group, DFC Magnolia Walk 2, and K Hanovian Four Seasons. Of these 7 entities, only one, the North Owners Association, has been paying any assessment to the Master Association. Between 2019 and 2022, the North Owners Association has paid 75% of the Master Association's expenses. A reserve study was done with regards to the Master Association's properties, and that's what drives the amounts to be placed in the reserve fund, which includes the resurfacing of Lakeside Boulevard. The estimate was approximately $1 million per mile. The reserve study did not take into account the increase in construction traffic once the boulevard was resurfaced from the construction level. Lennar does not own that boulevard. So this leaves the financial burden almost exclusively on the property owners of the North Owners Association. Lennar should be required to complete ongoing repairs and resurfacing as needed to Lakeside Boulevard and bring it up to the conditions which would be acceptable when that boulevard would be turned over to the city, and not have the financial burden placed on 440 property owners, and the monies should not be taken from the Hilton Head Lakes Master Association reserve account to fix these repairs. Many of the people here are from Hilton Head Lakes and the Magnolia Walk section. And I'd ask if they would raise their hand if you believe that the developer should be responsible for the ongoing repairs and maintenance of Lakeside Boulevard. Thank you.
So that question has been answered. So, right, Mr. Ha?
My name is Diane Carabas. I live in Hilton Head Lakes North Association as well. And I agree with everything that has been said by Val, by Pam here. I also want to point out a neighbor has recently gone and taken photos of the Lakeside Boulevard. There are currently stress cracks all through the street. There's a couple more pictures. I will leave these for you here. There's pictures of the dump site that they're using in the back that all the equipment goes through. There's another picture of the bridge that has stress cracks down the middle of the asphalt already. There are large cranes and trucks that go down here regularly. This was just an everyday occurrence that we were able to capture these photos. There's a few more there and another big crane and stuff. So this is just our request to show that we would like funds set aside, or we would like these repairs made now and on an ongoing basis. The pothole in the front, to be honest, was filled by a neighbor who lived in the neighborhood, put asphalt in it. Every time one of these big trucks goes around the corner, it digs it back out again and the debris goes flying. So now it's a big pothole again. As the master association and an owner in the neighborhood, we are responsible for paying car repairs and all kinds of things that are caused by these road hazards that come out along. So just pointing out those types of facts. One of the neighbors asked me to suggest as well that maybe we charge gate fees for contractors to come into the neighborhood down the street, down Lakeside Boulevard, to help pay for some of these repairs, since they're causing a lot of the damage. This happens on every neighborhood, I think, that is in the area, Hilton Head, Lakes, all kinds of areas. Also, possibly to have, besides the gate fees, maybe have gates put, instead of a sign that's flashing no construction, let's put the gates at Lakeside Boulevard. And you can't get in if you don't have a gate pass to get in. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is John Massey, 435 Blue Stem Lane, Hilton Head Lakes. I bought it in there in 2012. So I've been in there 11 years, and I have volunteered as a resident all that time, and currently help manage our boat and RV storage yard, which is full and a waiting list. Simple question. Summit Properties, I believe, owns a 22-acre tract at the entrance of Lakeside Boulevard and 278. I haven't heard that traffic increase addressed as part of the master plan, and we don't know, but have rumored that it's going to be commercial property. If it's a gas station, it's one level of traffic. If it's a hotel, it's another one. So I'd like the council to be sure that property is included and keep the residents informed whenever a permit is requested and granted. Secondly, the amenity center was discussed as a part of the master plan. The current amenity center at Hilton Head Lakes North Owners has a capacity of 60 people. There's approximately 300 rooftops. At 2 per roof, that's 600 people. We can't have events there. So with 450 homes, 900 residents, if I were dreaming in color, I would want an amenity center that could handle 900 people. I'd like for the council to address that when you do the master plan to help sizing of the amenity center. And lastly, as we get requests and we've discussed all of the constraints of our resources, what is the trigger point for the council to declare a moratorium and say no to any builder requesting additional housing permits? Now, I believe that we need to partner with Lennar as our developer. We should be good citizens and support them in the community, allow them to make a profit, but we shouldn't have to bear all the burden. So, thank you.
Hi. Hello. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Denise Simanel. I live at 888 Woodchuck Lane on the Gulf side of Hilton Head Lakes. There's 2 other builders building in there other than Lennar. We have Dreamfinders that are building in Magnolia Walk, a new builder, oh God, the one's from Carolina Oaks. There's been no discussion about that new builder from Carolina Oaks and the wear and tear his houses are going to have on Lakeside Boulevard as well. And I wonder who would address those. Thank you.
Any other public comment? I'm going to summarize when everybody's done.
I received an email from a constituent and who asked me to read her question. Can I go ahead and do that?
Yes, please. This is all, any public comment we'll take now.
This is from, this is from Mr. and Mrs. Jim and Kristen Kuchar, and they live on 450 Clubway. And the questions they wanted asked was, while watching the meeting with the Planning Commission and the Lena Coulter developers, there were a lot of unknowns regarding the road that will be constructed to West Argent Pod I to 278. How appropriate is it to approve a plan with so many uncertainties? It sounded like a 4-lane road was going to be constructed and connected to Medical Center Drive or Red Dam Road, which are 2-lane roads. I do not understand the logic. Medical Center Drive at 278 can get very busy during rush hour. Are there plans to widen that road to accommodate the extra traffic? Second question. I understand that the developers plan to construct a path for children to walk/bike ride to the Hardeeville school campus from the West Argent Pod I development. I think that is a great idea for the children. However, will the access be secured so that we don't have non-residents entering our communities from that path? Who will be responsible for the maintenance of that path? Jasper County, the town of Hardeeville, or the POAs? Question number 3. During the meeting with the Planning Commission, the Lena representative stated that Lena is currently funding the maintenance of Lakeside Boulevard, what we lovingly refer to as the $1 Million Mile. What guarantee do we have that Lena is funding the maintenance and not accessing our reserve funds, as they are not transparent with our POA budget/funds? Is there a written agreement that Lena has with the town regarding their funding of the maintenance of Lakeside Boulevard during construction? If not, I would like to request that one is drawn up. The residents are still waiting for a pothole the size of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home at the entrance to be repaired at the intersection of 278 and Lakeside Boulevard. Will the other developers be required to contribute to the maintenance of the road, since they will be accessing it with their construction vehicles? Will the road be maintained as the construction takes place and not after the communities are completed? With all of the construction going on, Hilton Head Lakes and Magwalk 1 residents should not have to continue to bear all the costs of repairing and maintaining the boulevard and the wear and tear of the boulevard for the duration of the construction of these developments. It's time to hold the developers accountable and require them to assist with funding the maintenance of this road. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Jim and Kristen Kuchar, 450 Clubway. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Please.
I really don't have a comment. I have a question. It might be a stupid question. My name is Kim Brophy. I live on Clubway, 1612. Can you hear me okay? So
I can,
my
yes.
question is, when Lennar says that they're going to pay for the maintenance of the road, Lakeside Boulevard, out of their pocket, does that mean their pocket or this master plan?
Mr. Hoff, can you answer that?
Don't have an answer for that at this time. Can be fun.
I'm new, so I don't understand master association as opposed to the HOA. And so when they say their pocket, is it really our pocket?
We will require that question to be answered in writing and the funding mechanism, because I've asked that question a couple of times, and so has other members of this council. What I'm hearing is that Lennar will be responsible for the maintenance of that road, not the HOA, Lennar. We'll get that in writing before we vote yes to this.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to summarize. And typically with public comment, we don't answer. We take input. Okay, like I said in the beginning, this is for us to learn, absorb, and if we have questions later down the road, we'll ask them before we get to first reading or at first reading when things are. So I wrote down who fixes the road now. I saw some pictures. My question, or the question I think was posed, who fixes the road now? Because the construction trucks for this area didn't start yet. It's now. So who's responsible for it now? Before Lennar hasn't started this development that we're dealing with right now. Okay, that's a question. I don't have an answer. The other question was, can we charge gate fees? Well, and going back to the other gate at the school side, if a gate comes up and it's secured, that will be the responsibility of the HOA. And for you to work out, if you want that gate, that will not be a city responsibility. But that's a question that will be answered at the first reading. And if Lennar wants to volunteer to pay for that, then that's up to them. But all these questions will be at the next meeting, will be addressed, and that's why I'm summarizing. Summit owns 20 acres, and we're being asked to notify the residents if anything comes forward. We do not have anything in the Planning Commission as of this point of a specific property or project. So we'll put that in the notes that once we do have something specific, that we give it. I do know when Summit bought this years ago, that the idea was to put commercial there, whether it's a gas station or it's a Publix. It could be any kind of commercial. We have a request to make the amenity size big enough to accommodate the number of residents who are going to be using it. Moratorium. It was asked if there could be a moratorium. Just want to note to everybody, because moratorium is a popular word now. Moratoriums are pauses, and they have to be for specific reasons, or should be for. They're not ending anything. They're just pausing it. So moratorium is not a cure-all. It might be a delay, but it doesn't stop, because these are development agreements that were put in place 20 years ago. They have, the owners have a right to develop the property. It's different if there are no development agreements like Jasper County has. That's a different legal thing. But we'll put that in the thing, that will answer about moratoriums. The question, I thought this was really good, other builders, and maybe they're the answer to the first one, who fixes the road now? So that will be answered.
But they haven't started building, well, Tree Finders is building, but the new one.
This is not, if any public comment, you want to come up, ask questions, please come to the podium. I have a question from earlier. Can we restrict Lakeside Boulevard in some way to not allow construction traffic? And then the questions that Ms. Guzman just read, I couldn't keep up. I don't have shorthand, so I will ask Val if you could get that to Mr. Zimbor and have the appropriate staff answer those specific questions with council CC. So that's all I have.
Just a clarification to what Denise Simanel said. Dreamfinders is currently developing Magnolia Walk. I've been told, and maybe I'm incorrect, they don't have to pay some money in until their development's complete. Then there is a new builder that's going in, not back in this pod, but up farther in the front that does not start building yet. And I'm just concerned that they need to be appropriately held accountable for their share of the expenses.
Okay, so that goes back to the question, what are the responsibilities of the other builders? And if there's a new section that comes in and it's built by Lennar, the same thing will happen. They'll have to come before this council and submit a master plan, and the master plan has all the elements that we discussed here today. So that's all the notes that I made based on public comments. We will have answers prepared for the next meeting, which will be September 21st. That will be a voting meeting. As Mr. Zimboy said at the beginning, in order for this to pass, it has to pass twice, and both times we'll have a public hearing. So you all have the chance to pass comments on the answers to these questions that came up today, including the questions that council brought forth. So that's the process. Thank you all very much. The reason we went to this format, we used to just, after it went to the Planning Commission, the next council meeting, we'd have first reading. But we said, going back a year or so, I don't remember exactly when, that some of these projects like this one are so important to so many people, and they're complex. There's no easy answer to a lot of the questions that you pose, that we need this forum, a workshop between Planning Commission and first reading for all the reasons I stated at the beginning of the meeting. So this is new for us as a council. All asked for this kind of format, and the point I'm getting to is that it's here not just for us; it's for you to be able to have a chance to let us know what you're thinking. And there's some great questions that came out of it, and that's what democracy is all about. And I want to thank you for participating in it. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, please come to the podium.
Hi, I'm Kathy Browska from 1430 Clubway. And you got some giggles here when people said, just ask them not to come up Lakeside Boulevard. We had signs in front of our house, construction workers, please clean up after yourself. Ha ha. We had what you said about coming over the bridge, construction workers, please use the back entrance. Ha ha. The construction workers come over and they just ignore the sign. And John, as much as thank you. Is there any way to put a penalty if they do use Lakeside Boulevard, if there's a sign that specifically says not to? Can you fine them?
It's the city can't, but that's a question for your HOA and for Lennar. We can't. And again, I'll go back to my own personal experience. I've lived in two.
Because if there's no consequences, they're just gonna do it.
And I agree. There's going to be there are going to be violators, just like I'm sure some of us here sped on 278 once in a while. No matter what rule there is, there's always going to be some violation. What it does do, the restrictions in the sign, is take a large percentage of it out. Will it take 100%? No technique will take 100% out. I've just, that's my own personal experience, and I lived it twice, so I understand it.
But there's no consequence.
The consequences would have to be, I know in other gated communities like Sun City, Margaritaville, there are security vehicles that go around, and the community has fines for that. So that's the internal security, and again, it goes back to your HOA. that if you want to have security going around and you want a fine to be imposed, that's your HOA's, your responsibility to do through the HOA.
I'm Rick Gabauer. I live at 1300 Club Way. When you talk about that being our HOA's responsibility, we have no representation on on the HOA. It's all Lennar, the board of directors or wherever you want to call it. I mean, they're not going to do anything about that. And if they're the ones asking for these cement trucks, that's their vendor. They can tell them, don't come up Lakeside, and if they do it, they won't have a job anymore. They should start doing that.
Again, Mr. Hoff said that they would restrict, and again, my only point, it's not part of our doings in this council. We can help you twist arms, but ultimately it's up to you.
But I gotta interject here.
Sure.
We live back in Magwalk 1, which is also part of the Hilton Heads Lake North Owners Association. Dreamfinders, I don't see anyone here from Dreamfinders. I don't see anyone here from the Old Village Park. I don't see anyone here from that development at all. And they're building something else behind us that's going to have another 115 homes. They have not been responsible for tearing up any of the roads. They've not been responsible for making it safe for us to even get in to our entrance. We have sat and waited for construction trucks, for cement trucks, for drywall trucks to move. If I had to have a fire truck, I'd be dead. That's all I have to say. Karen Stevenson, I live at 18 Garden Road Drive North in Hardeeville.
Thank you. Again, this forum is for this application, and that's why those other builders are not here, because they're not applying for anything and asking for anything, and that's why they're not here. But we do have some questions for them based on your input, and again, every one of these issues will be addressed. They may not be addressed to your satisfaction. I mean, but they will be addressed. And we, within the purview of our council responsibility, we will help you achieve your goals within the scope of our responsibility and our legal authority. Okay. Thank you all very much. I assume we'll see you on the 21st. 5 o'clock is the normal time for our council meetings.
I just do not have any on me. I apologize. I don't carry any on me.
Yeah, okay, council, 5-minute break.
Is it an HOA related stuff?
delays and stuff that we saw, or ramps level service. So the northbound ramp had a level service F of 64.8, so about 65 seconds per vehicle experience on the ramp. And the queuing goes off screen here. I'm sure y'all have seen that or experienced it. I drove by on a Saturday coming back from St. Simon's, and it was almost all the way to 95. And a piece of that is actually the signal at the medical center. Spills back to the ramp and then kind of clogs stuff up right there. And so one of the recommendations we're already going to make is to improve some traffic signal timing there, and or in the future look at a relocation a little bit further away from the ramps, which I think actually is already on a plan. So just making sure that that process is in place, because that's an important signal connecting to very important businesses. Is right now it's just really close to the ramps. So John Smith Road. So these go off of sim traffic. So it's like an ant farm model. If we ran it up here, it kind of looks like cars running around the network as ants. So these are 95th percentile queues. So John Smith, we're looking at, over 3,000 feet of queuing, which is what it says. That model just means that it's way over capacity. So it's saying the queues can't process. So that may not be exactly what's out there, but what we know here is that, okay, that's over capacity. And we know that John Smith is looking at being a traffic signal here in the future. And so that's something that we want that process to be moving forward. I know private developers are looking at that, but as we move forward and as projects come to y'all, I think that's a critical point of John Smith. So the lefts from 278 onto John Smith back out, and then just John Smith Road itself. I did see that there was some recent maintenance out there of adding a right turn lane on John Smith, which would help some, because that kind of helps with what we're trapping vehicles. Starvation, I guess is the technical term of it. So basically the right turns couldn't get past people trying to turn left onto 278 from John Smith. All right. This is what we talked about a little bit before. So the queues from medical center. So what the way this model works, it kind of stops at the next intersection node. So it does extend to the ramps, which then affects ramp the northbound ramps. So when we have the medical center drive operating level service F, there are some recent improvements out there too that need to be updated in our models. Saw it out there today. And then our other one that was kind of a hot topic of the meeting last was latitudes and Lakeside there. So the latitudes and Lakeside both operate at level service E. So they're on the verge of failing now, but 278 is at a level service B and C. So the overall intersection shows that it's not so bad that 278 is able to process a lot of traffic because there's not a lot of nearby signals. So those cars on 278 don't experience a big delay, but Latitudes and Lakeside would experience those delays, and that's typically how signal timing goes. You're trying to pump the volume through the main line, and side streets don't get as much time. It was brought up about the queuing itself, so we have some of the left turn queues here of spilling back beyond the existing left turn lanes that are there. So mentioned in the last meeting, that is something that I believe the car track's looking at as a short-term improvement on their end. And then I think Thomas and Hutton was looking at the design of extending the left turn lane into Lakeside there as well. So those are things that are identified. They need to occur. I did want to go back to John Smith, kind of an addition, another deficiency there is having the right turn lane onto John Smith will help some, because that, so from 278 onto John Smith, coming from I-95. So those cars right now are turning right, slowing down traffic a little bit, and can create situations for rear ends. So if we're able to add a right turn lane there, that's an existing deficiency that we'd want to take care of on top of the signalization.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Traffic turning off of,
John.
traffic, I didn't mean to do this, but it was right on this topic.
No, go ahead.
The, traffic, I'm a little bit confused. The traffic turning off of 278 right onto John Smith, where's all that traffic going? How does that help
Oh,
the
it just
flow of
gets 'em-
traffic with, John Smith?
So John Smith won't be helped out too much. It's more to help 278. It's just to get so if the car was
Well, how would they help John Smith? Where's the traffic that's turning off of 278 onto John Smith? Where is it going? Back to 17?
yeah, well, no, coming back towards Hardeeville, so back towards here. John Smith is a shortcut, or those future developments that are coming down there, they could be utilizing that as well, that interchange.
So the right turn lane, what
Would
it
turn onto
does,
John
it
Smith.
cuts down the backup because people who make the right can go into that right-hand lane rather than stay in the queue. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll speak for you, but to answer the question about where are those people going, usually it's when I-95 is backed up, and that getting across over to 17 to go left into town.
That's what
they're
I
coming
was
back
going
into
to, it's
town.
going down, that's what I was.
Done it,
okay.
done
See
it
what
a
I'm
number
saying,
of
Mayor?
times. So
Yeah.
It's really, if you turning right off of 278 onto John Smith, where are you going? The only place you can go is 17. There is nothing in between there besides the rec center.
That's where they're headed.
Not now, John, but there could be.
Yeah,
The-
I mean, there's
Yeah, but I
ex-
thought he was, yeah, you're right, Steve, but I mean, I thought he was talking about at the present. But you're right, eventually,
But extending that turn lane also, isn't there a planned spine road that will come out onto
that's
278
true too.
from that development also?
That's true too. You're right.
To plan this, not knowing where that's coming out.
You're right.
You see where I was going with that, Mayor? I'm sorry about that, but I just,
No, you know what I feel about John Smith Road. I'm sorry.
All right, and then here's our favorite topic is Argent. So once again, these are cues that show there's no gap. So these might not be exactly reflective of field conditions, but just show that the left turn from Argent or even the right turn from Argent has significant delays, which then backs up. And then the left turn from 278 onto Argent, we know can spill back beyond that lane into 278 and create a little bit of a headache there. We know that the traffic signal was out for bid with DOT. No bids came in, so wanting that to get signalized. And one of the things that, as we look at the future here, that we're going to want to do is, as this intersection becomes signalized, to make sure we're considering some of the folks that it's a circuitous route, but to turn left into the signal at the Walmart, to relocate them back to Argent because they might be using that as a shortcut to avoid that big left turn queue.
Yeah, they already are now.
Right. Right. And so that's stuff that we want to look at as we go into our future conditions analysis. Because the next time I come to you with a presentation, it'll have all the developments that are out here and then their plans of improvements plus any additional improvements that we identify as part of this process to say, like, ultimately, to make 278 successful, here's what we need so that we can go through with this document and start finding funding outside of what will be discussed later, additional funding mechanisms using this document to go to the state, we might be able to get FHWA because of the interaction with 95. There's already that improvement project at I-95 and 278 that SCDOT is doing, and they have their preferred alternative. So just finding other modes of funding to help make this project successful. We did a crash analysis. So it's kind of a hot spot. So it's a little bit light. We have Argent here. So no surprises. Here is Latitudes in Lakeside, John Smith, and the ramps. So I don't think there's any surprises on this map of what we've talked about. So what these two tell me, especially with the lightness actually at Lakeside and Latitudes, there's a little bit darker red, but these are pointing to situations where a traffic signal is needed. So there's a present safety issue without the traffic signal.
And here is, it's really congested and tight there at I-95 at 278. So further justifying moving that medical drive signal just a further to the east, so we can get better spacing through there.
And you're aware of the divergent diamond that SCDOT is going to.
Yeah, and Craig's been presenting on that, the
Okay.
timeline, and doing that with I-95 widening and everything. And that actually will be in our model as well. So there'll be a lot of different things like what we're presenting today. This will look very different the next time we're talking through this. So this is just kind of showing you the ADT drop. So what's interesting here, so we have January 2018 broken out about half years. So here's the dip in COVID. So this is our daily traffic volumes, right? So we're steady here, and then we have a dip in, because of this is 2020, we have COVID, but our number of crashes didn't really drop too much. So that lets us know that the actual current design of the road needs some safety improvement. So it's not just the number of cars on the road that are causing the issue. There's some design deficiencies within the road. So that's kind of what this chart shows us. And then a big jump here. I don't know what this is. I don't have like a trend of why we really went up here in July to December of 2022. So then, what's that?
We added the signal in a lot of
Rear ends. Rear ends. Yeah, that could be it. And then that might be it, because that's implementation. And then as drivers get more used to that signal being there, the expectation changes. It's a good one. I like that. All right, so these are pedestrian bicycle crashes that we have. So we don't expect many bikes or pedestrians on 278 because of volume, and I'm not brave enough to walk or bike down the road, but some people are. So we've had a fatality at Lakeside, and then an injury crash with pedestrian near 278 at Medical Center, one over at Argent, and then there was a bicycle crash sort of close to John Smith that was collected. And all this data came from the Department of Public Safety. So we actually had to make the request on behalf of Hardeeville for them to provide it to us. And so it's a 5-year crash period that we're looking at.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. So where you have that red dot, that one over there,
Mhm.
is that crash because if you're in the left turn lane trying to cross into Hilton Head Lake,
Mhm.
and then the right turn lane into Margaritaville backs up onto the
Okay.
that way.
Yeah.
You can't see anything. So if we are trying to gun it past on the blinking caution thing,
Yeah.
that's pretty dangerous.
Right. And that's one of the things, I mean, as Thomas Hutton presented in their last one, when they did the traffic study here, so that to get that protected arrow, because Margaritaville has it, Hilton Head Lakes at this time doesn't. So there's a process you have to go through DOT, and I think they did that left turn warrant and didn't meet it yet. But I think that there are certain levels too that if we look at the crash analysis, this fatality says improper crossing. So we can get into a next level and request that report. We do have to go through a little bit of hoops because of fatality and information and stuff like that, but we can find out more about that crash. But right now all we know is improper crossing. It was dark outside, so it was somebody crossing the road at night type thing. And so that's kind of all that we have right now for that particular crash. But I mean, just based off the feel of it with those number of lefts and that short storage lane there, I do think that those are things that should occur. That protected left against that speeding volume, because you're the first signal for quite a ways.
Yeah.
going towards 95. So if you're coming from Bluffton to I-95, since Argent's still not signalized, are you looking at over by the in-market, the new signal? Is that the first one? Walmart, you're right, Walmart, that's it.
The turn lane, the light for latitudes, myself and about 100 of my other neighbors, one afternoon,
Just driving
driving
through
in
it.
and out,
That's
driving
what
in
they
and out,
did.
Yeah.
to increase the traffic count.
Yeah.
But yeah, those
Can
are
I
some of the things.
interrupt?
What's that? Yes, you may.
We are cutting off at 5:30.
All right,
So
I'll go quick. I have
let's-
one slide, and it's
okay.
what our next steps are. So existing conditions, that's where we're at. Future no build and build with improvements, that's where we're coming back with you next time. And then we'll go to the public meeting with our findings and get their input, see if they're like, yay, nay, do we need to look at some more stuff? Go back to that, refine improvements, and then we'll have our final document. Another thing is, so as Matt mentioned, we were selected for the 46 and SC 315 corridor study. That should be 315 and not just 15 corridor study. We're not under contract on that yet, so we're still waiting for that. That actually will have an impact of volumes on 278 as we're trying to find a parallel route to 278 as part of that project. So trying to get some of the volume off of 278. And so, yep, and the next is our no build analysis and build with improvements and public meeting. Any other questions right now?
Okay, there's a lot going on, obviously, and this is so important. I just have one note, and well, I have a lot of comments, but I'm not going to have them tonight.
Okay.
The light at Margaritaville,
Hmm.
and this goes to Mrs. Guzman brought this up about her speeding ability. Every time I get caught in the light there, it's less than 1 minute. So that means they have less than 60 seconds to make those left-hand turns, whether they're going east to west or west to east.
Right.
And that's why Mrs. Guzman has to gun it to get past that blink. So that doesn't seem to be the optimal, and that's not but that's something, Matt, we should look into. It's nice not to have to wait when I'm on 278, but I don't want Mrs. Guzman to get killed.
Someday for me.
And that's
Okay.
Back to dust again.
All right. John and I, I'm going to have the dogs eating the house if I don't get home. So, and John has a meeting. So, this is a topic that's going to have, a lot of scrutiny, obviously, not just by this body, but other bodies. So let's, we got 10 minutes of questioning. Mr. Zimbor, do you have any?
No, just, we expect to spend a little more time on this, but what it sounds like, so Nathan, we've asked him to put that list of proposed traffic improvements with each of those developments. So he gave that to the council. We will go through that, but that will be incorporated in Dylan's work. And then also we'll talk about, developer responsibility, funding sources, intergovernmental cooperation with Beaufort County, Jasper County. And I know the mayor knows this. We did send a letter to Secretary Hall talking about the 278 project. So all that stuff's in play. So why don't we wait maybe till the second, when Dylan comes back with the kind of the proposed improvements and how everything, and then we'll go into maybe a much more deeper discussion.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to rush through it, Mike. You're right. This is something that we need to discuss. There's some flashpoints. John Smith is already failing, and I guess that's the right word. And that development hasn't started. There's a lumber supply under construction across the way there. That's not going to help anything either. So there's some tough conversations we have to deal with, and I think for council, this all goes back to what we talked about earlier. What are the responsibilities of the builders and the developers to help us solve some of these problems. And I said to a developer recently, maybe a couple of them, your development's coming in, you're part of the problem, and you have to be part of the solution. And I think that's what this council we're going to try to do is how do we make the developers part of the solution and not just be part of the problem. Council, any comments? Everybody must be hungry. Yeah, we meant to spend more time, Mr. Zimbo, but the previous one,
It's the normal democratic process.
right. All right, so let's have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, that didn't take long. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all for coming.
I don't want the dogs to eat the mayor's.